sponsors. Let's get booze.
Listen to A. Thompson for an hour. I'd rather fuck a blood relative.
It's A. Thompson.
Yo, yo, yo! What is up, people? It's me. I'm back. The second solo show of the week. How the fuck is it going? It's a Thursday. It's a cheeky bonus podcast. My girlfriend is away. She's taken my son. I'm at home with a 2-year-old for 2 days by ourselves. So that's fun. That's nice. Just me and my daughter together. Just the two of us. And somehow we will get through the next 2 days of crying and tantrums. Mostly mine, has to be said. And, realistically, it'll probably be with the help of, good beer and shit food. That's the order of the day. That's how I'm living. How's your look this weekend? Binfluencers, people of the booge. What's new pod-wise? Let's start off with that, shall we? Tonight, I'm recording an episode of the show with LBC's Ian Dale, which I'm quite excited about. If you're not familiar with Ian Dale's work, he is a former Conservative Party candidate who then pivoted and went into media. He's been on LBC for about 10 years, I think. And he always comes across as very measured, very reasonable. He and I come from completely different parts of the political landscape, but I'm looking forward to talking with him and picking his brain on a few things. So that's live streaming at 7:30 tonight, like every Friday. But if you don't tune into the live stream, then it'll come out to you guys in a couple of days, because it will go on Patreon first, right? So anyway, but basically, by the time you hear this, it will probably be Sunday or Monday or something. So it feels kind of weird me telling you to, tune into the live stream tonight on Friday, because it would have already happened by then. But just, look, most Fridays I do a live stream. That's what I'm saying. So if you want to get the shows nice and early, on time and topical, fucking jump on the Patreon. That's the easiest way. Hit the link in the description of this episode. It's patreon.com/Aid Thompson. Or you have the other option of jumping on the live stream on YouTube every Friday at 7:30. Or, most Fridays, at least. I say most, most Fridays. Like, some Fridays, there's no live stream. Some Fridays, I'm just done for the week. Shut my laptop, like, fuck this. This is a show about dystopia and, the shitness of the world and trying to have some fun with it. But some weeks, it's just all a bit too shit. A bit overstimulating. Some weeks my my kids play up, my mortgage doubles, my girlfriend tells me it's gonna cost another $4,000 to get the bathroom fixed or something, and then I'm like, I'm failing miserably to find the funny in any of this. I'm just gonna sit down, pass me the vodka. That is the mentality on those weeks. And so some weeks, there's no live show, or there's no guest booked. That can happen too. Maybe the guest cancelled that afternoon because maybe the guest is done for the week, shutting their laptop. Like, fuck this shit, And I don't know, somehow between the pair of us, me and this imaginary guest, it's a sort of communal fuck this. And, then you guys, my endlessly patient, albeit long-suffering audience, you guys then get fobbed off with another solo show in that instance. So, even if there's not a live stream, there's usually something coming out. But here's the thing about that, right? And I know I'm babbling a bit here. We'll get onto the news in a minute. We'll get onto the politics shit in a sec. But I say, fobbed off with another solo show kind of thing. But it's strange. Believe it or not, it's weird, but I promise you, right? The solo shows are now at least as popular, if not more popular, than the guested ones. And I don't really know what to make of that, you know? Like, I mean, like, I'm having a good time. I like sitting here and, you know, ranting and roasting for an hour, but it's, you know, it's a bit wild that that is an acceptable model for a podcast. You know, you think podcasts and you think guests around a table, you know, people's life stories or, you know, true crime, investigative things that are then punctuated with interviews and news, audio or whatever. You don't necessarily think of the audio equivalent of a man sitting on a bench ranting to himself, do you? I wouldn't think that was an engaging model for a podcast. But, you know, maybe that's the point. Maybe it's like, because you don't necessarily think of that is my gap in the market. And so, you know, I come along with my self-amusing, self-satisfied rants, and, you know, I fill that gap. I don't know. I might have to temper the ego, though. Like, if the solo shows continue to get more popular, I may have to just work on, you know, managing my ego. I might have to watch out for myself running away with myself. Or I'm going to... basically, I'll start talking over the guests in their shit, too, you know? Because I'm going to get all emboldened. Like, yeah, look, I'm the real star here, pal. You know, like that sort of vibe. I'll have some academic on, talking about, you know, what, like the prospects for neurological, technological development in the next decade. And I could just, you know, I'll feel it getting a little bit, you know, monotonous. And then I'll just barge back in and interrupt, like, yeah, that's great. Great stuff, Professor. But I think I'll take it from here, you know. Anyway, who wants to hear about my insecurities? You know, just take over my own show again, if these solo shows continue to get more popular. Anyway, look, that is enough about the pod and me and shit. So, what is in the news? What's the haps? Let's do this. People of the booge, fellow cult members, people who take comfort in the awfulness of society by smearing said awfulness all over the wall and laughing at it. Let us begin. Let's start looking at some shit. Join me, the newly styled Willy Wonka of dystopia. This is how I'm going. I'm going to the market now as the Willy Wonka of dystopia. Like, I dance around and I prance around the chaos with my top hat and my cane. You know, just doing little theatrical West End sort of dancing, pointing out the awfulness of the world, hosting this world of woe, attempting to make it entertaining for you. That's my new thing. So let's take a look. Right, what's happened this week? Obviously, the biggest news this week politically has been the resignation of Nicola Sturgeon, the First Minister of Scotland and former Deputy First Minister, Deputy Leader of the SNP. You know, 19 years at the top of Scottish government. And now she's off. She's like, you know what? I'm 52. Maybe fuck this. You know, maybe I don't want to spend the last 20 years of my life stood up at podiums navigating gotcha questions from you Kool-Aid clucking cunts. You know, maybe I just want to cash out my chips, you know, fuck off and spend some time kicking back a few Iron Brew vodkas on the beautiful beaches of Kinghorn Harbour. Which incidentally, I don't think is a particularly beautiful beach. Somebody from Scotland is going to be along right now to tell me, actually, Scotland has some really beautiful beaches, Aid. But look, I don't know. In my mind, Scotland's beaches are rocky and awful. Anyway. So that's her vibe. She's stepping down. She's decided to resign as First Minister of Scotland. And, you know, who can blame her, really? Just navigating this, you know, nonsense from frothing, classist bullshitters day in, day out. You know, it's going to take its toll eventually, isn't it? And then you're going to go, why do I have to put up with this? You know, I should be enjoying the sunny, sandy Californian surf that is Kinghorn Harbour. That should be me at 52. You know, Kinghorn Harbour is where, with its diverse and welcoming needles and rocks, I'm okay. Look, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if you're listening to this from Kinghorn Harbour, but you must, you know what Kinghorn Harbour is, right? It's, let's not pretend it's fucking Malibu, all right? Maybe she's just like, look, I'm fed up of missing out, guys. I've earned my stripes. That's it. I'm out. Maybe that's Sturgeon's vibe. Sturgeon feels the same about Scotland as I do about Friday night streams. Like, we both just shut our laptops, exhale, and open the tenants because she's relatable, guys. Anyway, so look, a lot of people saying, it's the end of an era. Sturgeon stepping down, which of course, it is. And I don't want to over egg it, but it is, it's a big moment. Like, think of it this way, right? There are 30-year-olds right now who will have never really known a Scotland without Nicola Sturgeon front and centre, giving statements, outlasting her rivals. So it is going to be a big shift for millions of people. And like, if you want to, if we really want to join the dots on this, if we really want to labour this point, like, if you want a time pinch point or whatever for how long she's been one of, if not the most pivotal figure in Scottish politics, right? When Sturgeon became deputy leader of the SNP, when that happened, when she first arose to as like number 2 of the SNP, the number 1 song in the charts was "Real to Me" by Brian McFadden. Brian McFadden's failed solo career was just starting when Nicola Sturgeon first became deputy leader of the SNP. Do you remember Brian McFadden? Do you remember that guy? Brian McFadden, like, all the tweens loved him, didn't they? I always thought he looked like Nick Carter having a stroke. That's what he looked like to me. I don't know if you guys listening back in your tween years, you fancied him or whatever. That's what he looked like to me. He was like not quite Nick Carter, I want to get too pop culture on you here on this Politics and Dystopia podcast, but like Nick Carter was the handsome blonde blue-eyed one in Backstreet Boys. Do you remember that guy? The schoolgirl's heartthrob. He was, he's the one, like, do you know the song, the Backstreet Boys one, where it's like, everybody, yeah. That one, right? Nick Carter is the one that sings those lines where he's like, am I original? Like, all of that shit, right? Am I sexual? That's him. He's that guy, right? Brian McFadden is what you get if Nick Carter got a blood clot. If he was just left untreated in the back of an ambulance for over 11 minutes. That's what you get, is fucking Brian McFadden. Anyway, what are we talking about? Sturgeon. Sturgeon going. Big change. So it's also a big thing, for Scotland, but it's also a big thing for British politics more broadly, isn't it? Because in many ways, her opposition to Boris Johnson and her disdain for culture war nonsense, all that stuff, like, she's always felt like a sort of, a reasonable, measured, articulate centrist to me. I don't know, that's how she comes across to me, in a politics that is dominated by children. That's how she appears to me. That's my perception of her. She has remained, in my opinion, dignified and eloquent, responsive, in a time when politicians, they physically turn their backs on the EU in Brussels, or they fucking call each other wanker in the House of Commons, or they bang on about the war and the Germans. It's like Sturgeon is the total opposite of that, And so, I don't know, there's an anxiety about the absence that she's going to leave, isn't there? Like, what the United Kingdom might become without her cool, calm, centrist influence to me. Like, that's how that feels to me. It's like, what? Oh God! Like, what might fill that gap? You know, like, there's an opportunity for a power grab here, and within that, there is a fear of what might follow. You know, it could be another centristy Sturgeon type figure, but it could also be Scottish nationalist populism. like a sort of, you know, Scottish Tommy Robinson. You know, a kind of Trumpy Scottish guy who blames all of Scotland's problems on their English, you know, like stirs up violence, separatist hatred. And it sounds like far off now. But I bet, you know, before 2016, no one thought anyone would be dumb enough to think the EU were oppressing us and then run into a fucking MP surgery and stab someone screaming about Britain first. I don't think anyone ever assumed people would be that stupid in England. And you think there aren't stupid people in Scotland? Impressionable, stupid people. Like, have you seen Neil Oliver? Fucking Freeview Jesus looking motherfucker. Like, what might come next for Scotland? If somebody rises up with the right charisma and communication skills and gravitas, who has the ability to energize, you know, and get people into that violent separatist space, like, it could get really fucking messy. Because there could be, like, you know, echoes here of what happened with the Conservative Party, like, over the last 6 years, couldn't there? Because don't forget, right, David Cameron was a centrist, right? I mean, cast your mind back to when he first rose up the political ladder, right? I mean, you know, even like after he left office, yes, he was going off doing God knows what with, what was it, like Greensill Capital or whatever it was he was doing, like weird lobbying shit for, like. And yes, like after he left office, a load of shit came out about, you know, how David Cameron's father's money was involved in actually quite an elaborate tax dodge. Like the guy fucking got named in the Panama Papers. So yes, you know, in many ways, David Cameron rubber stamped Tory, but his policies, you know, bringing down the deficit, fighting climate change, pro-business, pro-Europe, like a lot of it was pretty fucking centrist. And it's funny, you know, because viewed through the prism of current politics, you know, neoconservatism, it's so far away from where CCHQ is now, isn't it? Like, 'cause, like, for all the talk of Labour being the party of the woke, you know, that's a big thing, isn't it? Bloody Labour, they're so woke. The funny thing is, I suspect Starmer is probably closer to Cameronism, for want of a better word, or certainly, you know, superficially closer to Cameronism than the current roll call in CCHQ. I really like, they're not that far apart. Like, if you think of Cameron's pitches in, I know we're going way off Sturgeon now, but, you know, humour me, indulge me. If you cast your mind back to David Cameron's pitches, the manifesto, like before, you know, he got into power, just as he was going to market, as he was going to the electorate saying, this is what I'm about. You know, the country were tiring of New Labour. And Cameron goes to the electorate like, you know, hug a hoodie and the environment and compassionate conservatism, you know? And they were like, we pledge to match Labour's spending plans in 2010 and 2011 in health and overseas aid. Like, it's all actually quite sort of, you know, middly, centre-left, you would almost call it, wouldn't you? You look back on David Cameron's pledges back in the day, and then you look at Starmer's policies now and how pro-business he is. And, you know, abandoning his pledges to nationalise utilities and so on. You know, like Cameron and Starmer are closer to one another than Cameron and CCHQ. Cameron and Sunak and Truss and Lee Anderson and all that fucking nonsense. It's bizarre, isn't it? And like, here's a weird thing. Here's a weird question for you, dear listeners. Here's something to ponder on, right? If Starmer has inarguably moved into that centre space, you know, which I don't personally have a problem with. You know, like you might, dear listener, you might think that betrays the socialist ideals that he rode into the leadership on. Like me, I'm cold-hearted and manipulative enough to think that, you know, if it gets Labour into power and then we have a shot, just a chance at pushing for some decent, real-life shit policies going into the King's Speech, I'm fine with him changing his mind about a couple of pledges. If it helps him to maintain a vote lead, you know, and then he ends up behind a desk in number 10, able to affect change in an array, in a suite of other areas that actually improve lives, I'm actually okay with that. You know, I'll take the rough with the smooth. I don't expect everyone to celebrate me for that, but, you know, fortunately, I also don't give a shit. So, and I know, I'm going to get people on Twitter now going, oh, I see. So you don't care when a politician lies to get the leadership and lies to get into power, so long as you get your way with the policies in like a year or two. Yeah, well, yeah, actually, pretty much. I'm fine. They all fucking lie. They're all disingenuous and duplicitous. At least there's a shot that if Starmer and Labour get in, that we might have that line in to change something that actually improves lives, rather than the cast iron certainty of more Tory rule ruining them. Anyway, look. I've had enough of Tory lies. That's the thing. Tory corruption, Tory savaging public services. That is their lies. Lying for themselves. Lying for self-serving, self-enriching reasons. But I'm okay with Starmer, you know, pivoting, so to speak, if it gets Labour in power. And if they can then, you know, save the fucking health service. How about that? Start this national energy corporation that he's banging on about. You know, hopefully, quietly, maybe even join the single market. How about that shit? That would be nice. But perhaps that is, you know, the last one, a bit fanciful, you know, to be expecting that in the first term anyway. But anyway, here's the weird thing to ponder on, right? If Starmer has moved into the centre and is enjoying a healthy poll lead for over a year, right? I think it was 29 points the other day. 29 points ahead. But if, quote, Britain isn't conservative, right? Like, you know, once you add up the Labour votes with the Lib Dem votes and the Green votes, you actually find that the majority of people in the country hold pretty progressive views, right? Pretty liberal values. They are pro-choice, they're pro-Europe, they're anti-racist, they don't hate immigrants. Most people have progressive values, right? And so we say, you know, Britain isn't conservative. It's just first past the post, and the fact the left vote is always splitting. That's your issue. So, if Starmer has moved, I promise I'm getting to the point in a second. If Starmer has moved into the centre, why does Labour have to move to the centre to pick up those centre-right floating voter types? You know, like if actually the maths says that Britain is majority left-leaning, where does this push to get them nearer to this minority centre-right space actually come from? And that's quite an uncomfortable question to ask, isn't it? Because it suggests that they're not doing it to pick up floating votes. Or maybe they are, and they just, you know, they're scared about upsetting the Mail, and then the Mail's amplification of that minority of centre-right votes might just push them over the edge, and then the Conservatives get in. I don't know. Anyway, that's the part that I don't get. You know, couldn't Starmer just say, look, most people want nationalised trains and electricity, so fuck it, we'll do it. You know, most people support nationalising rail. So if it's a poll winner, or if rejoining the single market is a poll winner, why don't we just do that instead of this fucking like, oh, you know, nationalising electricity might spook an extra 7,000 voters in that marginal next week. So I know what we'll do. We'll say we have no plans to, you know, like, couldn't we just come out and honestly, I suppose I'm answering my own question here, aren't I, really, is, you know, the calculation from Team Starmer is probably that in the immediate, He doesn't want to lose any electoral support whatsoever. He wants to maintain this healthy lead. So depending on what votes and what local elections and polling he's got coming up, he cherry picks the stuff that he would commit to and then releases a statement on that stuff. Anyway, what the fuck were we talking about? Sturgeon, right? Sturgeon, standing down. One day I will do a solo episode where I actually stay on point and you guys will have a fucking heart attack from shock. But let's continue. So Sturgeon standing down. Cheers, by the way. And so often, right, when these domestic leaders, your DUP types, your SNP types, they can get pigeonholed as just a UK thing, just a British news thing. It's just something that's happening within the province of the UK, that sort of perception. But no, these things do actually resonate overseas also. And Sturgeon's resignation has garnered a response from none other than America's id, Donald Trump. Right? So he's heard that Nicola Sturgeon, leader of the SNP, Scottish First Minister, has agreed to step down. I've actually got the audio of it here. Let's see. I hope that you guys can hear this. Let me just move the mic over. Here we go. Read to you by none other than the People's fucking cunt, Nigel Farage. Here we go. Ready?
And a comment on Nicola Sturgeon that's come straight from Mar-a-Lago and the 45th President of the USA, Donald Trump. He says, good riddance to failed woke extremist Nicola Sturgeon of Scotland. This crazed leftist symbolises everything wrong with identity politics. Yes, Donald, I'm with you all the way.
He's with him all the way. How about that shit? He's gone all the way with Donald. It's like, you sort of, you think to yourself, maybe he'll be like nice about this. Maybe, he's a former president. Maybe he could be a little bit reflective and reserved and respectful. Maybe he can be a little bit and then there's this other part of my brain that kicks in at that point when you think, because you read how Donald Trump has responded, or Donald Trump releases a statement about Nicola Sturgeon, and you think maybe could he be respectful? Could he be? And then the other part of my brain kicks in. It's like reflective from Trump. Are you kidding? What out of his litany of offensive behaviour and literal crimes and charmless existence over the last fucking 10 years, what out of all of that has fermented this idea in your brain that he would now be respectful at this moment? Basing it on absolutely nothing but hope that he might have found something close to a generous, giving, nurturing and compassionate spirit deep within. Reflective from Trump. You're looking for reflection and compassion from Trump? Cool. Okay. I'm looking for a reach around from Ted Bundy. Anyway, let's move on. So I don't know if you caught that, if it was sort of muffled or a bit tinny from Farage reading it out, but this is what he said. He said, good riddance to failed woke extremist Nicola Sturgeon of Scotland. Good riddance. This guy's an ex-president, and he wants to be president again. High office. The American president is someone that American children are supposed to look up to. And so then, she says she's standing down. She says, her speech was pretty good. She said, it's the best job in the world, but it's one that she can't continue to do. It's 24/7, hugely demanding. It's hard to switch off, especially in the modern era, But it deserves someone who can give it the vision and energy that she feels perhaps she no longer can, And then so, Donald steps forward and he says, good riddance. Good riddance to you failed woke extremist, Nicola Sturgeon of Scotland. He's just such a fucking child, isn't he? Just anything he doesn't like, anything that's measured or grown up Trump-esque or anyone who's, capable of communicating with people on an intellectual level, he just cannot tolerate. Good riddance to the failed woke extreme. Like communicating on an intellectual level, he finds extreme. Which, look, maybe there's something in that. Maybe when you have the IQ of a fucking dead hedgehog, maybe when your IQ is in single figures, maybe a coherent adult speaking normally is extreme. Like Donald Trump finds Nicola Sturgeon extreme in the same way a dog finds a bowl of food to be magic, I don't know. Like, here's a fun question for you, right? I don't know if I have any Republican listeners from the US for the show. And if I do, I doubt they would get this far into an episode. Probably not. But here's a question for you guys. Who do you think is more extreme? The lady that wanted free education and free prescriptions so that people could have social mobility and a fucking shot at old age dignity. That lady. Or the flag fucking nut job who cheered on the January the 6th riots and attempted an actual coup that left 6 people dead. Who's more extreme out of those two? That is a tricky one, isn't it? Like Sturgeon makes university free for Scottish students. Whoa, that is extreme, said Donald, with 18th century cannons blasting behind him, firing cannonballs into the Capitol building, the fucking effigy of the vice president burning, stage left. People rolling through Congress on flotillas with a Donald Trump sort of figure like mannequin nailed to a cross. No, I don't like her. She's a bit extreme for me. Like, no self-awareness at all. None. I have seen more awareness from my mum reverse parking in a multi-story. He's such a fucking parody of himself too, isn't he? I mean, I feel like a lot of the criticism of Donald Trump is like, it's kind of done now, isn't it? Like, I feel like I'm rehashing old, SNL tropes, but it still amazes me, like, how adored he is by certain subsets of the American right who would literally hand over their wives and daughters to him. Such is the depth of their love for this man. And yet the reciprocity extends to what? Like, Trump would have these same people moved or, removed from his golf clubs at the mere sight of their overalls. It is not a two-way love affair, this one. The fucking split-second sight of that checkered shirt and dirty hands from a life spent working in the real America, the heartlands. They rock up to Mar-a-Lago. We love you, Mr. Trump. You my hero. And he's like, just could you get these oil-stained losers out of here before they stain my burgundy carpets or steal the cutlery? It is not a two-way love affair. But it's still there, isn't it? They still love him. I mean, Donald Trump just basically wants to be a fascist dictator, doesn't he? I don't know why his flag fucking freedom fiends, I don't know why they can't see that. He literally ticks every box. Like, what does he want to? He wants to, erect a wall around the US, isolationist stuff, keep the immigrants out. He wants absolute power, have armies of QAnon goat fuckers worshipping golden statues of him, while he, murders journalists and invades Canada or something like that. That is his vibe. And some of you might be thinking, oh, come on, Aid. You're being hysterical. But you know what? People said this stuff. They warned you about this shit before he literally tried to steal that election. And then for a brief minute afterwards, you lot and, Fox News and Hannity, for a brief moment, people were like, yeah, okay, look, maybe maybe he overstepped the mark a little bit with the deathy insurrection thing. Like, now millions of us are again warning, like, this guy is basically fucking Hitler, but he's just not so good at public speaking, you know? They're basically the same. And still this lot are like, oh, come on, you're just being hysterical again. You're like, really? You want to see where this leads again? Like last time it was 6 dead in the Capitol building. That was the first time round. I mean, I guess that was the opener, was it? That was a support act. I can't wait to see what this guy's headline set is like. What's he going to bring us with his Coachella budget? I'm psyched. Let's see what happens. Anyway, so he's responded to Sturgeon. That's what I wanted to talk about. And he says, good riddance to the failed woke extremist Nicola Sturgeon of Scotland. And, I guess when you're that far to the right, when you're that much of a weird, dogmatic, babbling lunatic, yeah, I suppose someone all the way back over here in the centre probably does feel a bit extreme, doesn't it? Probably is a little bit like far away. Well, that does seem extreme to me. You can kind of get your head around that. But the other thing was the good riddance thing. That didn't sit right with me. That didn't make any much sense in my noggin. I don't know. Like, you say good riddance to someone. That is a thing that you say after you kick someone out of a party, isn't it? Like, good riddance. Or rather, actually, that's something that boomers say, or said in the 1960s. I think nobody says that now. Like, it's a sort of, stilted, stiff, old boy Hollywood line almost, isn't it? Like, good riddance. Like some guy in his sort of, zoot suit throwing his mate out of the... And don't come back, see? It's like that sort of vibe. Good riddance. It's an old thing to say. I don't think people say that anymore. Good riddance is like what you say when, like, you throw your husband's suitcase out in the driveway, because you're kicking him out the house that you still occupy. That's the key thing. You're inside the house, you're kicking him out, so you say good riddance. You throw his shit in the driveway. You kick him out because, you came home early and you caught him blowing some black guy called Clive on the family sofa, and he was dressed up as a milkmaid. It's fine. Kick him out, right? Throw his suitcase out there, by all means shout, and good riddance. That's the proper context. But do you know what? Even then, in the modern day, your neighbours, they would be like, this, it feels weird hearing that. It feels weird hearing a 33-year-old woman say good riddance. Like, are they filming something next door? Because that sounds like badly written dialogue. That sound, it's not something that somebody would legitimately, angrily say in the real world. Anyway, you come home, he's blowing Clive, you kick him out. And not because Clive's black, by the way, or even that they're gay, Clive can do what he wants with anyone he wants to. But your husband made vows. So that's what's upsetting to her. She's upset about the cheating. That's it. Not that it's gay cheating. Although, there is the gay element does leave her with a few questions and probably some, insecurities and stuff. But, she's not homophobic or racist. This imaginary woman in this scenario that I'm clumsily wheeling out, she's just upset. But she doesn't care that Clive's black. She cares that Clive's balls are emptying into her husband's mouth. That's it. Like, the fucks that Clive's giving are the extent of the fucks that she gives. How about that? I know. Wow. There I was worrying that I was going down some sort of, clumsy comedy cul-de-sac there. But lo and behold, I ended up at some delicious fucking wordplay. Thank you and good night. But no. Anyway, good riddance in that scenario, perfectly appropriate, right? We're done. Bye. And yes, you can keep the fucking milkmaid outfit, you pervert. Like, that's appropriate because she's still there. She's kicking him out of the place in which she remains, in that environment that she's alluding, right? You understand? But Trump doesn't get to say that because Trump is A, not in Scottish politics, and B, even if we were talking geopolitics, like international shit, he was himself ejected from power, fucking 2.5 years ago. It makes no sense. Like, good riddance, Nicola. You know, one of his aides pulls him aside, like, why are you saying good riddance? Because that's it. She's out of office now. Well, so are you. Well, God damn it. I keep forgetting that I'm not president anymore. You know, it's like, you don't get to say that. How do you say good riddance to someone for leaving power when you yourself were already removed? You fucking idiot. But that's Donald Trump, isn't it? He's just, a sort of self-parodying, self-generating comedy genre. Just fucking stupidity through a 50-watt amplifier. Just a burst water main of idiocy. Like, Donald Trump says the type of stupid shit, like, out in the open, on the record, that regular people would have to release an apology statement for, like, if they got caught on a hot mic. You know what I mean? Like, if Blair got caught saying some of the shit that Trump says on a hot mic, there would be flights to the people that he had offended, there would be apology statements, there would be tweets coming out. But Trump just doesn't give a fuck, does he? Just no dignity. No grace. What else was in that apology? What else was in that response statement? Let me have a look. Good riddance to failed woke extremist Nicola Sturgeon of Scotland. Okay, so it's levels deep stupid too. You know? It's level, like, there's just every fucking pinch point of this sentence. It's like, because we've covered the good riddance thing, okay? We've covered extremist and extreme. But failed and woke, you know, failed and, like, I don't know, like, Trump throws out failed and woke and all that shit, but it's like, you know, does anyone else think maybe the woke shit is played out now? You know, that's the thing with the woke element to this. Woke feels done to me. People have been saying woke for like 4 or 5 years now. I think, like, you need a new thing, lads. Hearing people say woke now is like when your mum and dad found out about, you know, bling bling. You know? It's like, I don't know, let's say your mum comes down the stairs and she's seeing you about to head out and you're all, you know, fixed yourself up, you're wearing your nice outfit, and, you know, she's like, oh, I see you going out, you know, you got yourself all dolled up with your bling bling on, and you're like, oh God, Mum, can you ask your mouth to stop manufacturing cringe, because it is just not good. Like, I feel like woke is that now, you know, it's just done. Like, I know some people who still say it in chat groups, you know, but invariably they are not, you know, actual political types. They're not news junkies. They're about a year behind on everything. They're like, oh, did you see the Harry and Meghan thing? Oh, God, it's a bit woke. You know, it has the same energy to it as, you know, like your dad sending you a DiCaprio meme from 3 years ago. You know, old memes from your dad. It's got that energy to it. He sends you through like a DiCaprio, you know, oh, nice one, Dad. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's DiCaprio from Django Unchained, looking a bit smug. Yeah, great. It's rivaled only by your smug face. That's having sent it. Like, it's the funniest fucking joke in the world. Like, you think I haven't seen this? This was funny 3 years ago. Jesus, you're on the fucking internet, Dad. It's supposed to be real time. Are you on dial-up? Or so, like, how are you just getting this shit now? Do you even know about the pandemic, you old bastard? Like, that is woke now. It's just like, you know, it's played out. It's dated. It's only referenced by people who either, you know, aren't particularly immersed in politics or, you know, or they are, but they lack the intelligence to know why it's not going to win them any points, you know? Anyway, good riddance to failed woke extremist Nicola Sturgeon of Scotland. But that was the other bit, right? Failed. So we've covered extreme. We've covered good riddance. We've covered woke. But failed makes an appearance there too. And that is equal, like it's just its own genre of comedy, this statement. Like if you're going to throw failed into the mix, you better have a fucking deluge of successes yourself to leverage off. You better have a fucking Showtime biopic ready to go, telling the world how you overcame the odds that were stacked against you to achieve a bunch of stuff. Because, like, if you don't, if you happen to be, you know, I don't know, a failing upward nepo baby piece of shit, cheap joke in an expensive suit, if that's you, and you only ever got anything because it was handed to you, and even then you made a fucking mess of it all, and then you became president and failed spectacularly for 4 years to achieve anything of any substance, and then you were voted out as a one-termer, and then you threw a tantrum that ostensibly killed 6 people. I don't know. I'd be pretty fucking circumspect with who I called a failure, if it was me. Guys, that's it. Thank you for tuning in. I'll be back very, very soon when I go live streaming with Ian Dale tonight. That talk is likely to be rather political for obvious reasons. So if you are into politics, if you are a bit of a news junkie, and you do live in the now, you're not trapped in the narratives of like 2-3 years ago and heavily out of date, it might be one that you might enjoy. So stick around, join me tonight, 7:30, live on YouTube. It'll be out on Patreon immediately afterwards, and then it will emerge on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all of the usual places 2 days later. If you would like to jump on the Patreon, I always put links to patreon.com/Aid Thompson in all of the episodes, so it's super easy for you to tap into it. There's 3 tiers, and it starts at just £3 a month. So if you are enjoying the pod and you've listened to a few of the episodes and you're like, yeah, I like this, I might be up for a little bit of extra content, exclusive stuff, the quick heads up about all of the live shit. You know, the Patreon backers got first dibs of the tickets to the Riot Society show last week. So that was cool. And we do in-person meetups in London. We did one in October, going to do another one in April. You get an RSS feed for the podcast that goes straight into like your Apple Podcast player or Spotify. Like you can just get the episodes super, super quickly. Right direct into your usual, like you don't have to download the Patreon podcast player or anything. You can just get access to them super early in your regular one, so that's cool. There's also a Discord chat. Me and the Patreon backers jump in there. I'm in there once a day, usually talking shit about Tories. And yeah, so I don't know, if you are enjoying the podcast and you are in a position to, maybe jump on it, patreon.com/Aid Thompson. If you're not in a position to chip in £3 a month, that's fine. Everyone is feeling the pinch, I promise you. All I would say is maybe just tweet a friend or like pop something into a WhatsApp chat with somebody that you think might also enjoy the podcast. So anyone that you know that's into satire or piss taking or, you know, roasting politics, trying to find the funny in a really senseless time, just copy the episode of the podcast that you enjoyed and then send it off to a friend or an enemy. I don't care. I'm not precious about that shit. And finally, if you don't want to do that, or if you're feeling particularly flush, I've just started putting t-shirts. I know, it's proper, like, I never thought I'd be the sort of person that sells fucking merch and t-shirts and shit. But I am designing them myself. So I did one of Lady Moan, like Baroness Moan. It says get money, but it's spelt like get money, and it's her on a fucking yacht. And it looks quite gangster. I quite like the t-shirt. It's pretty good. So there's that, and then there's another t-shirt of like Centrica, who announced £3.3 billion profits, right? 3.3 billion. Meanwhile, people are having fucking gas meters reinstalled in their homes to prevent them from using their heating if they can't afford the astronomical fees. And so I created this t-shirt. You change the E in Centrica to a U, so it says Contrica. So there you go. I've made 2 t-shirts now. Get money and Contrica. They're both on the Funk27 website. So that's funk-27.co.uk/merch if you want the full one to it. So yeah, so they're on there. That's it from me. I'll catch up with you all soon. All the best. Take care of yourselves. I'm outie.